fields. A stampeding swarm of frothing horses. Clots of earth kicked up in an infinite series. Huffing beasts. Huffing muscled legs. Somewhere, past the tension that rests on the skyline. Pulled taut like slack. Frothing up and lapping rocky beds. We watch each other's breaths coagulate. Other times, follow as it billows down in wisps and subtle sheets. I eye the lake and wonder how it sounds when the ice cracks. The ebony glassed eye, full of nothing, and full of instinct, guarded and bound by masses of muscle and lungs, set towards some point, somewhere forward. Somewhere, I imagine reaching into your chest, to rummage around the soft tissues, odd organs and organ sounds, trying to find bits of bone and earth, between the east and left, to see if you heave and deflate the same, from the inside. And so there was a fantastic sight. The sea parted, water stopped, teeming, and upwards, and casting, up at the top like some fabled vaults, left wrapped and God adjacent.
And what was there in that room I thought I knew? That room I thought I knew but didn't. That room smelling like how memories taste, seeing the walls breathe, the muscles underneath shifting, jitter, electrified. I in that room, that nameless white room full of nothing and rife with everything. Own body stuck and stagnated in the present. An odd feeling. I hadn't felt in my body often, more like the Newman of a place. To reside and not to find oneself within. To stay there but not to inhabit. Disconnected through all the firing synapses, electrodes, chiasmas of human biology that allow me to think there's here, there's now, there's backward and forward. A tumultuous waltz between these three players, the two fighting over the one, consequently ripping the poor vied for thing at the seams. There's here, there's now, there's a body flayed which rejects form, and as I walk towards the corpse, I find it unknowable, a muddied mess that swirls and contorts, sucking in form from everything around it. A great, complicated carcass, whose rib cage still heaves with life. A beautiful, dead, living thing, waiting to burst with life like some fantastic fountain. And I ask again, what was there? In that room I thought I knew. There was myself, and some animal body I could not know, the walls perfumed with fog, swollen and tender to the touch.
Hooves beating dead and dry. Earth. Shadow casts of you. Swirling together like some probiotic seed, aggregating at the soles of my feet. We eat clocks, time mashed by molars, slabs and clods, rushing out when your mouth gapes to let spades of light ooze out and fill my room. Was there a time before you? The charge halts, a carcass at the origin of an idle pasture. Lying on its thick side, the buzzards chanting out, careening on fell wings, in fell air. I tell you we are perfect points that swell, expand and strain. You are an amoeba, looking for something to sink your teeth into. Refracted parallels, a Newman of the body that rung like mad trumpets, suspended behind the cavernous sternum. Something there, no longer here, a vestige of itself, is a vestige of itself.
And I remember, I think I remember, I believe, I did something, I didn't do nothing. That foreign fleshy frame in the center, that heaving, that gloating sternum, like it looked at me without eyes, taunted me, asked me to see it fully. It made me sweat. I could smell it, or maybe the walls, sweet and sticky and fermenting, the sensual fumes clinging to my skin. A body, a carcass, an unknowable thing, but I have to know. I have to know things. And I remember, or I can at least imagine, the ways, the passive time I took to saunter around the unform. How I'd keep low to the ground, my back leg ready to thrust into the floor at a moment's notice, if that horrible heaving turned to something malicious. Fingers spread and tensed, legs poised and taut. Head low, head low, head low, subtle and soft steps. Light steps despite the room. The room, the room, the room, and seeing the thing heave from different angles, different views, a grotesque spectacle of burden. The room swelling, the way the thing swelled, me in this thing, which felt like a waterbogged death aching to pop next to this thing, this thing, this thing. And there's a callousness in that waiting. When the now is so intense, it settles itself into the forward, and soon I could see unrealized echoes of myself, the paths I'd grow to take before I did them, and I did do them, despite my attempts to subvert them, and I'd guess at things living death, see the biology of breath before it took place, the sweat on my body growing thicker and thicker like plaster. And I remember other things, I think, but I don't remember the rest. I remember waking up in my bed, the sheets soaked in sweat and damp hair clinging to my forehead, twisting my neck towards the light pouring in, to hear the rhythmic smacking of bluebirds soaring into my window, dropping dead down 3 floors and piling up beautifully.
The rag trots. Further on, forking. At the live corpse. We feast and fill our guts sick on the teething spirits of this place. It's 3:33 in the afternoon, and we cast rocks upwards to try and crack the moon.
A ringing sound, something like tinnitus, but warmer maybe, more gentle maybe. Something nostalgic and wailing in the metallic, almost clinical sound. Tasting coins, pennies not dimes. A wonderful cascade of ringing, turbulent and calling. I felt like my eardrums were beating, twin hearts guarding my head like angels round a bed. And those bluebirds, so many piled up, like a great pyramid of flesh and feather, just outside my window, down some 30 feet or so, and flourishing. The conglomerated corpus, plumage incorruptible and azure, streaked with whites and blacks and cut through by beaks and small talons. The longer I looked, the more the stalled flock seemed to move, loose limbs contorting, sternums expanding and contracting. Poor birds, those small bodies exhausted by flight, exhausted by their own faculty, touching the sky and now lying still. To rest, to refill oneself like a vase. And I heard something then, cocked my head towards a distant and small sound. It repeated. At first I thought a small pattering, or maybe some sharp slapping. I could placate the sound in space. Felt it coming towards me, but still distant. And as that space closed, the pattering turned to a distinct clopping sound, a horse. And so I hoisted the window up, saw a black mare approaching between the shafts of wind. The frame of the horse, its edges of ego, shifting and molting sporadically, at times jumping and dispersing like bacteria. It became difficult to know where the horse ended and the rest of the world spilled out like wild growth. She slowed her approach, slightly turning, facing the bluebirds, them piled up, her rooted on all fours, countless sets of beady eyes, black and vacuous. She stepped up a little closer to the pile, the muscles in her legs twitching, stooped down and began to eat. One bird at a time, the crunching of the frail bodies among the soft gnashing of horse teeth. Clumps of feather and guts masking dropping at the corners of her mouth. This went on until there were no birds left, and I had lost track of time, enraptured by the dreamlike meal. There was a puddle of saliva on my windowsill from my mouth left open and still. The black mare looked up towards the window I was seated in and walked off into the street, where her head exploded. It plastered the area around her in gray matter and bits of skull. It was this gorgeous ring of mashed head with her body at the epicenter, a color I'd never seen before. Her neck twisted as if to see me one last time. She kept on down the street until I couldn't see her anymore, and I went back to sleep.